Good afternoon and welcome to our webinar today on Panda 4.2 and other upcoming algorithm updates. I'm Chad Hill and I'm joined by our crew in the Rochester office.
Yeah, good afternoon, Chad. This is Adam Stetzer here. I'm glad to be here. It is update season. I'm in the Rochester office and joined by a whole bunch of folks. Say hello.
Hello.
So good to be here, Chad.
Excellent. Well, I would like to say that there's kind of a hint of fall in the air, but there really isn't, especially here in the DC area. But we are, algorithm update season is upon us, and Panda 4.2 came out a little bit earlier than I think some people expected. But let's talk about what these algorithm updates are all about and why we all need to be, what we need to know about them, and then what we need to do to prepare for any upcoming algorithm updates and just generally be aware of how these work. So quickly, in terms of the agenda today, I want to talk a little bit about the differences between Panda and Penguin, talk about the difference between what's an update, what's a refresh, go over a little bit what Panda and Penguin have brought us in the past. And then we want to take a look at the Google Webmaster Terms of Service and how, as people in the SEO business, we can read it, interpret it, and try to understand how to make choices that are best for our clients and our businesses as we deliver search engine optimization services. And then I want to end this with taking a look at a couple new pieces of information, especially the local pack updates, and then a new referral program that we are rolling out today. And as always, I should say that there is a questions window. Feel free to ask any questions in the chat window, and Adam will queue up your questions, and we can either break in at certain points during the webinar today or hit them at the end. I want to start by talking about the difference between updates and refreshes, and this is my best as a business person, my best sort of representation of how to think about an algorithm update versus a refresh. So when you have an algorithm update, what's happening here is that Google or another search engine is actually changing the components and potentially the weighting of individual elements in an algorithm. And so again, this is probably more a representation of a formula, but I think you'll get the point here. So in Algo 1, the way they originally calculated a ranking was they took 2 times X and they added Y to it, and that got the answer, and that's how you got ranked somewhere. When they do an update, that means they're going to actually change the algorithm. So now there's a new algorithm, and it's algorithm 2. So they've actually changed the weighting, and it's now 3X plus Y, and now they've introduced a new element, Z, and in this case, it's 2 times Z. So this is as far as we're going to get into algebra today, but I just wanted to make the point that with an update, you're really looking at a whole new formula. So when you're talking about a refresh, the big difference there is they're just taking all the new information that's been gathered since the last time they ran this algorithm, Panda, Penguin, whatever it might be, and they're running that back through the same formula. And there's a really important difference because when you have updates, that's when the world can turn upside down. Big changes in the rankings happen versus refreshes. Often, if you didn't drastically change what you're doing or go crazy with over-optimizing anchor text or decide to go start spinning all of your blog content, you shouldn't really be too impacted because, again, they're just reevaluating the information that's already out on the internet. So a year ago, your content, you only had 10 blog posts. This year, you have 50. They're going to run, if you put the same level of care and concern into those 40 new blog posts, if they're running a Panda refresh, you shouldn't see a massive change in your rankings or a big change in the SERP. Now, the only case where that might not be the case is if somebody ahead of you or actually below you had cleaned up their act and now they've changed radically what they're doing, and so Panda refresh or a Penguin refresh helps them. But generally speaking, you're not going to see big changes. And Adam, I'm going to pause there because again, I think you have a great way of thinking and looking at these things. Is this how you would explain the difference between a refresh and an update?
I think it's an inherently confusing topic because people would naturally say, well, with a refresh only applying it once and rerunning it, I don't get that. I thought the algorithm was there every time I pressed search. So I think this probably will come into focus better when you start talking about our views on just how many parts of this algorithm are there. Obviously, every time you run search, you're getting results based on this algorithm. It's fairly real time. The notion that they can even have refreshes suggests that there are these shadow algorithms, which I know, Chad, you're going to talk about, and that's where it really gets into a little bit of a mind bender, but I think as you have it laid out here, it's about as clear as you can get.
Exactly. And again, I think that for the most part, we want you to be aware of these things because these are the kinds of questions that can come up. I seriously doubt a client will ever get into debating you about the difference between an update and a refresh. But I think just having this understanding, this context is important when you're out selling and talking about search engine optimization services. So we're going to talk, actually, maybe I'll go a little bit out of order here. Let me just kind of go to Adam's point here, and we'll come back and talk about Panda and Penguin. So as Adam said, our belief is that there's the give part of the algorithm and there's the take part of the algorithm. And so there's this primary algorithm that, as Adam said, is what every time when you click search, Google's evaluating these criteria and showing you the best results for your query on that search results page. That's the primary algorithm, and that thing's all about the original Google back rub, as what they originally called it, which is all about trying to find the content and using the links that link to that content as votes to say this piece of content, this page is most relevant for this particular search query. So that thing's still alive and well, operating at a very even faster pace than it ever was. But over the years, Google has rolled out these takeaway algorithms. The biggest ones are things like Penguin and Panda, and there's other ones like the payday loan and the payday loan algorithm update. But for most of our businesses and clients we're working with, those aren't really relevant. It's really Penguin and Panda that are the ones that are the takeaway algorithm. So what they do is, as we talked about, these don't always necessarily run all the time. Now, Google has said that Penguin, for example, they've got in sort of a new mode where it's supposed to be always evaluating. I think there's people that analyze this and say, not sure if that's exactly true, but generally speaking, the Penguin and Panda algorithms will then look for over optimization or thin content, and they'll take away the algorithm, the rankings that maybe you got from the primary. So that's sort of a quick snapshot there. I'm going to jump back and then just talk more about Panda and Penguin. So the two animal algorithm updates that we often talk about here are Panda and Penguin. And Panda is all about thin content. So it's all about trying to crack down on thin content farms, sites with high add to content ratios, and a number of other quality issues that they run into. So this really played out a couple years ago. The sites that were kind of most hit by this were sites like back in the day, kind of hub pages, Mahalo, where their whole business was writing these super targeted pages on very specific keywords that people might search on, but not really developing the topic very well, just trying to put up the most basic amount of information possible on that one topic to get the ranking. And Panda was really all about coming through and sort of taking away those people that had kind of over-optimized on or written really thin content but done lots and lots of it. It initially rolled out in February 2011. The last refresh was basically in 2014, prior to the one that happened last month, 4.2. And so it really went about a year between the 4.1 update and the 4.2 update. But basically the 4.2 update, the news on this one was that there was not the overall internet and the guys who track, sort of rankings across thousands and thousands of different searches didn't see a lot of noise on this one. We actually did see a fluctuation. We actually saw the Panda rollout happen where we had some clients' rankings move up and then actually, for the most part, recovered within a week or two. So it was sort of a strange process where as they were rolling it out, we saw some people's rankings slip, but then they came right back. So it was an interesting that we actually caught it with our search ranking tracking, but some of the bigger guys who track a lot more searches didn't see that. Now on to Penguin. So Penguin is all about over optimization, and this is often where, again, Panda can come into play, but a lot of times Penguin is the place where you have to be a lot more careful. It's all about devaluing links to websites that don't meet the Google Webmaster guidelines. And when this originally rolled out, well, it originally rolled out in April 2012, but the really big update that actually impacted a lot of small businesses came out in October of 2013, and this was Penguin 2.1. And this was, again, we saw a lot of clients, and just across the board, a lot of clients that were impacted because Google came out and was looking for tactics that a lot of search engine optimization companies were using at that time, where they were very, very targeted anchor text. So every link to the client's website that was built would have the exact keyword anchor text that they were trying to rank on, which was a great signal, and the Give algorithm was loving it. It was feeding them excellent rankings and everything else. But when Penguin came out and said, does it really make sense that this page on this small website has every anchor to it with this exact, very scripted, sculpted anchor text? And again, an anchor text is the hyperlink, right? The text that's in the hyperlink. Does it make sense that so much of this anchor is exactly the same? And so they developed an algorithm, Penguin, that would decide when is something over optimized and therefore unnatural versus when is something okay and doesn't trip anything in the filter there. So that rolled out in October 2013. They had a refresh last year. So again, a refresh, not an update, in October 2014. And we have not seen, again, an update on for over 2 years to this algorithm. So as I said, Penguin in 2013 was kind of a bloodbath. 2014 was a refresh, wasn't that bad, but we don't know what the next Penguin is going to be. And this is why we want to have this webinar, because we want to talk about it and let everyone understand, again, the risks and what things we recommend, so that everyone can be prepared for what happens if in 2015 there is a big Penguin update, not more than a refresh, an actual update. And these in the past, as you can see here, have happened in October. The big Penguin updates have come out for the last couple of years in October. So we're getting close to that right now.
So Chad, this might help people understand a little bit about the difference between refreshes and updates. This idea of this Penguin, you call it an algorithm, but it's only happening at certain points in time, right? It's not an ongoing evaluation day to day, at least as we've been led to believe by Google. So it sort of gives you this idea that it's a program that just does a snapshot of how does everything look right now, has a set of criteria, and if it sees things that it doesn't like, that it decides are over-optimized, that are signals to them of manipulation, which I know Chad's going to talk about in a second, it then applies, not a penalty, because that has a different meaning. We like to think of it as a devaluation of those links. And so if you think back to Chad's calculation there with the weights, it might look at that inbound link and say, that's just too over-optimized. I'm going to devalue it. I'm going to de-weight it in the algorithm. And then that weight sort of persists until the next time that view is updated. I don't know if that helps or hurts your understanding of refresh versus update. And also, this is pure speculation, because Google, of course, is not going to tell us this stuff. But that's, at least in my mind, how I think about these things to understand these very complex mathematics that are happening.
Yeah, thanks, Adam. Okay, one thing before we go to the next section, one place I always like to refer people is take a look at. I'm just going to click through to Moz. Moz has a great algorithm change history document. I always just search Moz algorithm calendar, change history, whatever. But this is a great one because this is a very quick place to go just to time changes that you might see in a client. So if you have a client come in and they're talking about a drop in traffic and it's time to July 17th, just for example, and you see a drop in traffic, then it's pretty clear it's most likely about Panda 4.2, which then you can kind of go and look at and say, well, what is Panda all about? Well, it's all about thin content. Oh yeah, the 200 blog posts that I had somebody do on Fiverr for $5, those probably didn't help. I need to do something about that. So I always recommend going here. Not everything is on their algorithm update. In fact, there could be a traffic impact as related to the 7-pack to 3-pack change Google just made, which we're going to talk about in a minute, that wouldn't show up here because it's not related to algorithm. It's actually related to Google's interface. They made an interface or a UI update, which made changes. So let's talk about reducing risk and just understanding risk. The first thing to do is to be familiar with the Webmaster guidelines. I have a link to that in this document. This will be available to everybody. When you read through the guidelines, I think, and you think about online marketing or marketing in general, it comes down to being diversified. So I'm actually going to drop to the last bullet and then sort of come back in through the other way. A good online marketing strategy always involves more than multiple tactics. Ideally, you want to have search engine optimization, social media, you want to have paid search, maybe you're doing email marketing, maybe you're doing something on mobile, and maybe even display advertising. So you want a well-diversified program because you're going to retain your clients. Well, two reasons. One, because your client's going to have more success in the long run, but two, you're going to retain that client longer because you have a diversified program. So if any one of the things you're offering or doing isn't performing that well in that particular month, you have 3 or 4 other programs that hopefully can kind of make up for the slack, or you can reallocate some of your effort from one to the other. So diversification, whether it's your finances or whether it's your marketing, is really important. But then as you dive into SEO and you think about how to be diversified in SEO, it's very much the same thing. You don't want to do too much of any one tactic. You want to have a diversified approach. So what we've done over the years, I was kind of reflecting on this, looking back through some presentations that we've rolled out, we've added in a lot of diversification options for people. But we can add those options in, we can suggest you use them, but at the end of the day, you need to understand why we've put them there. We've put them there for diversification, and we strongly urge that everybody always use them. So the first one was Premium Writer, because again, Panda, there were days in our 7-year history where content we wrote could be evaluated today by Panda as thin. Now today we've got premium writers, and we're writing great, unique content that's engaging, good headlines. I mean, we've as Google has changed their algorithm, we've evolved our process a lot. So if you're not using Premium Writer, you should be, because that's where we put a lot of time and effort into training our team, hiring a great team, and then training them to develop great content that's going to, again, when reviewed by algorithms like Panda, now I can't say it for certain, but we're writing it for end user value, which we believe if we write content for end user value, then Google's algorithm updates that evaluate that are going to say, hey, this is good content. Featured news is another one that we rolled out last year. And featured news placements are all about really 2 things. One, being on high quality websites where we have an arm's length relationship with the publisher, and we're able to publish that content on those websites and earn backlinks to your client. And the way we do that is really unique, because we actually are able to write great blog posts, embed facts in those blog posts, and then those facts can become citations for the featured news stories. So again, when you're looking at that piece of content that we're publishing on a featured news partner, those are fantastic pieces of content, because the reason the link is there, when you think about the Penguin algorithm and is this link optimized or over optimized, the reason that link is there is to cite or reference a fact that someone used when writing that story that exists on another piece of content. It's the perfect it's exactly what linking is all about. It's like citing your resources. So we're citing where that fact was placed. That's what a featured news story is all about. On-site content, same thing. Over time, again, we've put a lot more effort into thinking about and maintaining your client's blog, writing great content that fits their message, includes facts and figures. Depending on the plan, if you're on a plan with visual assets, we now even are including a nice graphic with a supporting fact in that story. So again, really good stuff. Visual assets and videos, same thing. These are new content types. It adds diversification. You're not over-investing in just articles or blog content. You've got other things like images and videos. And then there's a couple things here that even, again, as a diversification tactic that you can either ask your client to do themselves or you can help them do. It's always very useful to go out and see if you can get your client, ask them, now, are you a member of the chamber, or do you sponsor a Little League team? Whatever local involvement they're already doing, say, hey, you should go out and try to find a way to get a link from those things you're already doing. Get credit for the, you're already getting credit from potentially a brand standpoint, but get credit from an SEO standpoint as well. Ask for a link from the chamber, or a link from the Little League team back to your website, because that's going to help, again, diversify your link profile, so that when some update down the road, Penguin 3, Penguin, whatever the version is down the road comes into play, you've got a nice diversified link profile to your website that doesn't have too much of any one thing. It's got a little bit of press releases, it's got a little bit of articles maybe linking, got local citations, and then I think the other two that I will mention here are press releases and local citations, or other ways of diversifying. So our suggestion is our news plans are really all about providing great diversification, and you should check those out, because we've kind of hand built those to give you some of these real diverse different tactics, including featured news that can give you a really nice diverse profile. I included 2 links when you download this to the Webmaster guidelines, which you should read, because everyone should understand what's in the Webmaster guidelines. And then I also have a link to an FAQ document that we published last year, where we took the Google Terms of Service and went through each one and basically talked about, what our position is on this, and if we do any of these the things on here. The one that is always going to have the most debate is link schemes. So Google leaves this one pretty open, and really gets into the thing that's difficult with link schemes is they talk about the intent of building a link to a website. And so, it's literally impossible for Google to ever understand your intent, obviously. But I think we put together this FAQ for you to all read and sort of understand, what do you agree with? What's your position on this? Because then you need to adjust your delivery to your clients based on your understanding of the Google Webmaster Terms of Service, and you can read our point of view and how we look at it, and then of course you want to make up your own mind. Okay, so that's the algorithm update, sort of getting ready for the update season portion of this webinar. I have some other recent news studies that I wanted to share with everyone. So Adam, do we have any other questions that have come up here before we transition to the next part of this webinar?
Yeah, there were a few. I've been typing back and forth in the chat window. The first one was just, can you expand, use the term over-optimization a few times. Can you expand on what you mean by that?
That's a great question. I mean, I think that's really where the debate is. What is over-optimization? So again, what we know from many case studies from back in like the October 2013 timeframe, when a lot of websites were impacted, is that you would look at their anchor text. So one of the things we do when we do your on-site audit is we pull from Ahrefs. You can get it from other sources, but we use Ahrefs for this part of the analysis, and we pull back all of an anchor cloud, basically, of like what are the anchors that link to your website. So I'm going to explain that, because some people might say, I don't know what an anchor cloud is, or anchors. But again, remember when you link, and I can just show you in this presentation, it may be a little hard to see, but I have the words Google Webmaster Guidelines hyperlinked in my presentation to link to the Google Webmaster Guidelines on google.com. So this is the anchor, Google Webmaster Guidelines. So we'll pull back from Ahrefs all of the anchors pointing to your website. So Ahrefs goes out and figures all that out, and they make it easy for us to view and download. And what we'll often see, not so much anymore, but early 2014, even maybe halfway through 2014, we would get a site in that had 67% of its anchor text was, let's just say it was SEO Atlanta, Okay, I'm just picking that randomly out as an anchor text. So Google would look at that and say, but then, so it would be 67% SEO Atlanta, then it would be www SEO Atlanta company, or SEO in Atlanta.com, and then it would be, you know, SEO company Atlanta. So there'd be sort of a number of different anchors. And one of the things that that we would look at is we would say, well, they would look at that and say it's probably unusual for so many of the anchors to that website to have this perfectly optimized anchor text. It would be more natural if it was first the name of the company and maybe the domain name, because that's how a lot of people link. And then further down those anchors, there would be some that had SEO company Atlanta and companies that do SEO in Atlanta, things like that. So that's what we mean by over optimization. Adam, do you answer the question?
Yeah, I think that's right on. I got one other one for you here. We were talking about the news plan. Someone wanted to know, I don't understand how exactly the featured news will affect rankings. I wonder if you could go through that.
Right. So we're going to hit, actually, that's a great segue to Ranking Factors 2015. So I will answer that question, but let me run through some of these ranking factors that Moz just put out, and then I'll answer how they help. Does that sound good?
Yeah, excellent.
Okay. So I took a snapshot. Moz just rolled out. They do an annual survey of all of search engine ranking of different experts in the field, and they come up with what they believe, based on everyone's testing and analysis, are the most important factors in driving search rankings. So they've got a graph here, basically on the left, and then they've got their sort of breakdown. So I'm gonna go actually over to the right and just kind of read down this list, and they've ranked this in number one is the most influential feature towards ranking. So this is domain level link features, which is basically based on link citation metrics such as quantity of links, trust, domain level, page rank, etc. Okay. The next one is page level link features. So this is page rank, trust metrics, quantity of linking root domains, links, anchor text distribution, quality spamminess of linking sources. Okay, so most people start off thinking that SEO is about putting keywords on pages, but you can see here that even in 2015, after all what Google has done and talked about how they want to, end manipulative linking and things like that, still in 2015, the two most important components here on this list are both related to links. One is domain level linking, so that's the authority of the website. So a link from the New York Times, which is a domain authority, I think of like 90 something or 100, is very powerful. And then page level linking is that a link, but take the example of the New York Times. There's the overall domain is very authoritative, but if they launch a new page of content today, there aren't many signals to that page. There aren't many links to that page. So the page authority of that page will still be high because it's on the New York Times, but it's not as high as some feature piece they put out with 100 that 100 bloggers link to, or somebody else, a bunch of other people link to, that has more page level attributes. But those two factors are all about the links, basically. And then you get down to page level keyword and content features and page level keyword agnostic features. So, and those two things are essentially, the third one is what a lot of people initially think SEO is about. You need the words on the page, you need good meta descriptions and things like that, and you need good structure of your content. So, is it have a schema markup and those types of things. But then the fourth one here is all of them about some of the new intangible. This is newer stuff. It's a little bit more of the intangibles, like length of content, readability, uniqueness, load speed. Maybe load speed's a little more technical, but those are some of the newer elements you're seeing. And then the fifth one, I'm going to go back to the question now in a second. The fifth one is definitely something that's showed up in the last couple of years, which is engagement and traffic query data. So basically, click-through rates, clickstream data. More and more people are saying that Google is doing a lot to figure out what the click-through rate, what the engagement is on different links. They're counting how long you were on the site before you came back to the search results. So those are some of the factors here. But let's sit back up to the top because it's related to your question. Why are featured news important? In general, the featured news placements have a higher, not always, well, let me say it this way. In general, the featured news placements go on domains with the highest domain authority of any of the sites where we can publish content. So in terms of looking at the ranking factors, that's number one. They're going on websites with higher domain authority than where we can publish articles. And so, for example, so that helps on factor number one. And that's really why we recommend featured news. Now, how do they help your rankings? Well, what's going to happen is we're going to write a blog post on your client's website. And that blog post will have facts and information. It'll have a topic that'll be relevant to one of your target keywords. And when we post that blog post on your client's website, we should have an internal link to that target page. So if that, I'm just going to use an SEO example, if that particular article was about on-page optimization, and when we wrote a blog post on on-page optimization, and we had a service page on our website that talked about our on-page optimization services, we would link from the blog post to on-page optimization. So that's an internal link from the blog to a service page that we want to rank on-page optimization. When we write the featured news story, we're now going to use a fact from that blog post, and that fact is going to then link back to the blog post. So that link is coming to our domain from a higher domain authority website. So that's helping our domain authority. And then because that link hits that blog post, it may rank on a term, but it's also then passing some of that link juice back to the internal page about on-page optimization. So it's a couple hops there, but that's why featured news placements are important. Adam, how do you think I did on that? That one is that's a tough question, isn't it? It's got a lot of nuances.
Yeah, I don't think it has to be overly complicated. The featured news placements in my mind are the best links I've seen us be able to acquire. They're on strong sites. They're on sites with real audience. There's an editor over there, so they're getting through this editorial review, which is pushing our team here sitting in the room to make excellent content that will be engaging. And the other thing I like about it, and maybe it's not directly related to why it helps me rank, but it really helps out these newspapers, who in many cases are community newspapers. They're small and struggling, in a lot of cases inner city newspapers who really need help to stay afloat. So you can feel good while you're doing good for them and earning a link back for your client. So in a lot of ways, they're just, I think, an excellent merger of SEO and PR and content marketing. And we've looked around this industry a lot, and we're 100% convinced it doesn't exist anywhere else. It's only here at HubShout. So for a lot of ways, I'm very proud of what we've been able to achieve, building these relationships with these editors, helping them out with excellent journalistic content. As you said, statistics-based linking is a great concept. Totally makes sense. It's justifiable if there's an editor there, and we can feel good while we're doing it. So there's a lot of reasons why it's helpful, not only to your site, but also to the world.
Excellent. Let me wrap up with a couple. Let's finish up the list here of the ranking factors for 2015 before we go on. And if there are any questions that people have about what these factors mean and how to interpret them, please ask a question. I'd be happy to dive into it in more detail. So we talked about engagement and traffic information, which again is click-through rates and how Google's using that more and more. Then we get into some other things like domain level, brand metrics. Some of these are getting down on getting a little bit further down the list here, but this is the offline usage of brand domain name. So it's kind of difficult to see how Google exactly would measure this. The seventh one is domain level keyword usage. So this one used to be very important, right? That in the domain name, you would have your keywords in there. And we still do see quite a few what we call EMDs, exact match domain names, but it's obviously can be overcome with some of the features above it, but it's still in there. And then domain level keyword agnostic features like what TLD it's on, and this is still an interesting one. We have seen more and more of the new TLDs coming through, and when you see when you look in Google today, you don't see a lot of those new TLDs like .global and .io and .co. So it'll be interesting to see kind of how this changes over time. And then the last one, look down here. It's like social media. They're barely in there. The social metrics. So quantity, quality of tweeted links, Facebook shares, Google Plus, etc. So again, let's just on social. The reason social comes up, and it's here again. In most cases, what a lot of people believe is that social can help. There's a high correlation between high ranking pages and pages that have a lot of social engagement. And clearly, people want to link and talk about good content the same way they want to tweet and talk about good content, or Facebook post about good content. So when people put this link there, it's still a little questionable as to whether Google's directly reading, and most people say they aren't, that something with 50 tweets means they're going to rank higher. But obviously some of the experts out there think that it's starting to show up more and more. And Adam, again, I'd like for your opinion on this too. Like, where do you think we are with social in terms of it being a ranking factor?
I think you summarized it well. And Moz has data. They have hard data. So they're saying that the experts agree. It's on the list now, but it's the smallest one. Yeah. Whereas a few years ago, it wasn't really even on the list. Yeah. There was a lot of hype around it, even 4 or 5 years ago. Oh, it's a huge factor. I think that was largely debunked. I think it's emerging, and I do think it's important to think about, again, because if you're not putting out content you would be interested in tweeting, then it is going to be hard to rank that content, because it has to pass that quality level that you would feel good about. What I want to tweet this, and that's a good standard to use, even if the social isn't a direct ranking factor. It's a good way to think about the quality of the content you're creating, and are you proud of it?
Right. It's definitely you get a faster feedback loop on it, because you can write content all day long and never see anything in the rankings, whereas with Twitter, especially with Twitter, you can get a very, very quick feedback loop to see if people are talking about your content. Okay.
Right, and then of course there's the indirect effect of link building through social is it's a great mechanism for broadcasting it out. I think is where you were going with that. That it may not be a primary link building ranking factor in the direct mathematics sense, but if you have a huge list of followers, like we've talked about, we have 70,000 followers across our social media accounts. That's a lot of reach, and so you can get to a lot of people and get in front of a lot of people, some of whom will then build a link. So again, the audience play on a couple levels. Would I tweet this? Is it meeting my criteria? And then do I have thousands of followers I can put this in front of, some of whom might become link builders for you because you really earned that link, they found it interesting, and they'll include it in a story of their own.
That's great. I want to switch gears now to another recent update that happened 2 weeks ago, and calling it the local pack shakeup here. So this actually probably will have for most of the people on the phone the biggest impact on their clients right now today. If you take a look at this, you'll see on the left-hand side what we used to have and call the 7-pack, with 7 local results for a lot of search queries. And this came off of an article written on Moz. I think it was actually done by a guy who focuses in the legal space. So he's got a legal screenshot here. But what you can see here again is on the left, we have the old search results screen, and this is sort of above the fold look at it, where you had your 3 ads at the upper left-hand corner, then you jumped right into the map pack, and there were 7 results there, and then you went into organic, and then you had the map over here on the right-hand side, and then ads. To the new version of that, where you still have your 3 ads, you then see the map in line in the main column, and then now there are 3 results, not 7, with a more button down at the bottom, and there was a smaller more button in the 7-pack over here before, and then obviously a lot more space for ads. So I think that this is a big change, because what happened here is this was not an update or a refresh. This was actually a user interface change. They actually just reduced the number of slots on the page for local businesses. And it went from 7 to 3 in the local map results. So this actually is a very big change, and we saw it absolutely in the rankings, because a lot of clients lost their map pack result ranking. And so then the ranking that was showing up was their traditional organic ranking, which maybe it was at the bottom of page 1, maybe it was top of page 2, but it certainly wasn't sort of above the fold on the top of their search result, on the top of in the map results area where it was before that. Now, there's a lot of speculation why. I mean, I think that's pretty obvious if you just look at this and you can see how many ads are showing here. One clear objective is that Google got a lot more ad space in here for advertisers than they had in the old layout. There also were people, I think Google said they did usability testing, and they found that people preferred this layout, liked having the map in the column, and so there, of course, is that side of it. But I do think that, unless you're the guy, and that wasn't one of the guys in the top 3 spots, you definitely lost something in this change. So everyone should be aware of that and be ready to talk to their clients about this. This was not, even if in our search results screen it shows a loss in rankings, I think people should talk about, look, this was a change to the UI. You were 6, they dropped you out, and now we're showing your organic result, which is on the bottom of page 1, so it's 9, or top of page 2, so it's 11. Just want to make sure everyone's very familiar with that. Any questions? And I'll go to the next screen here, but Adam, maybe you could, if there are any questions, let me know.
Nothing major, Chad, that I can't handle in the chat.
Excellent. So the same guy who wrote this article then did a click stream or a heat map test just to see where people were clicking and what changed. So a couple things came out of this that were interesting, and actually we were just talking about this earlier today in our sort of R&D meeting, where we talk about how to optimize and improve processes for getting results faster for you and your clients. And one of the things that came out of this is, first of all, you can see here that actually the second listing, for whatever reason, got quite a few clicks here in the map pack. And then there still is quite a bit of interest in the organic results. So you can see that people are scrolling down past the maps and still going for traditional organic results. So that is pretty clear here in this data. And you should check this study out. He's got some actual share of clicks where he talks about how much goes to local and organic. So it's a really interesting article. But one of the things that this is clearly doing is pushing local advertisers towards AdWords. And we're, again, always on the record saying that we think a diverse online marketing strategy does include some AdWords advertising. And so, whether that's through us or if you're doing it yourself, definitely think that for some of these local businesses, it makes sense to include AdWords in their campaigns. The other thing that people are talking about is that this kind of pushes people towards more specialization. So it's going to be harder when you only have 3 slots to optimize against to be a generalist. And even if you're somewhat of a specialist, you need to be even more specialized. So the example was that if you're a dentist and today your homepage is about dentistry, but you have an emergency dentistry page, you have a crowns page, you have whatever other services you offer page, maybe the way to optimize for the map pack is to focus on having your homepage optimize more around emergency dentistry or crowns or whatever you want to specialize on. So I think there's some thinking there, whether that's probably with the same website. Maybe some people will think of ideas how you create little microsites. I'm not saying you should do that at this point, but I do agree that when you're only dealing with 3 slots, and if you want to be the local business, then the guy who's a little more specialized with a fewer set of keywords he's trying to optimize against, which is already how we're kind of set up. Our philosophy is not go try to optimize for 70 keywords. We always focus on fewer keywords. But I think this is another example of why that makes sense. The last thing I was going to mention is that the article, I didn't get it in here in the slide, but the last thing that I did mention is that a lot of people in this new UI were clicking on review data. And I didn't catch that before like I said, our R&D meeting this morning, but they did show in this clickstream heat map data that that reviews, when you have reviews, that was actually something people were clicking through to read. So it's good piece of feedback, something we should all be thinking about. And in the local search ranking factors, reviews are a part of that. They're not a huge part, but they are a part of it. But clearly we can see people like reading reviews, and it's a good thing to always go after. Okay, here I am. So the last part of our presentation today is that we're rolling out a new referral program, and we've had a referral program in place for the last couple years where if you referred us a reseller and they signed up and joined our program, signed an MSA, that we would pay you back the $199 non-refundable deposit that we collect when someone signs up. So we wanted to sweeten the pot a little bit on this. So what we've done is change the criteria a little bit, but what we want to do is give you $1,000 when you bring in a new reseller for us. So we know that a lot of you want to keep us your secret, and we know we love being your secret engine that delivers your business for you. But we also have a lot of other resellers who do refer clients to us, and we really appreciate it. And we want to essentially sweeten the pot here so that we let you know with a serious contribution, $1,000. If you bring us a reseller that sticks around in our pro program, that's $1,000 a month for at least 3 months, you get $1,000 from us. So check your email. We sent an email blast out a couple hours ago. There's a link to make the referral, and if you have any questions, feel free to get in touch with us. That's all I have today, Adam. Are there any final questions anyone had out there?
Chad, I think we're all wrapped up in the chat. There was a lot of good discussion. I appreciate the questions, and I think this is a great session. It is update season again, so I know in the SEO world, it's time to focus on that. And like you said, last year was fairly uneventful, which is what I think most of us work all this time to prepare for, a lot of hard work, so that it's a non-event. But 2 years ago, there was a major shakeup, and you had some great slides in here that talked about reasons you should be concerned if you're really not producing great quality content, and you're not using multiple forms of social media and different media types and infographics to push it out. Certainly if you're not taking advantage of our featured news and our small newspaper, community newspaper publication relationships, which is industry leading, these are things you should definitely give a second look to as we head into the fall and the update season. So Chad, excellent information. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you everyone for your time today, and as always, we will post a recording of this webinar along with a link to the slideshow for you to download and review on our website in the webinar section under resources by tomorrow. So thanks a lot. Have a great day. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for coming. Take care.